So we're wrapping up our series of talks on First Timothy, the whole book today. Final couple of verses. Going to look at the last couple of verses, and then also just kind of recap everything. See if you remember anything that we talked about. It's been several months, so I don't. If you have any notes, you could look through them, or read the book and just think of the thoughts that came to your mind. But anyways, I'm not really preaching today. I'm just sort of asking some questions, having a discussion with you. And so the first question is, what's something valuable you've been entrusted with? Yeah, that was what came to my mind too. I can't, maybe little things here and there but you might have been asked to be a godparent or to somebody's kids or whatever. That's kind of or to be an executor on somebody's estate or stuff like that. But definitely going to sound like a pastor nerd, but it's got to be the message of the gospel. Like it says in another, I think it's Corinthians, that we got this priceless treasure in these jars of clay, and he's entrusted us with this message. He entrusted us with this message, this amazing message of the gospel that Jesus loves you and he died to save you and you can be free and you can go to heaven, all that kind of stuff. We've been entrusted with that to share. That's the most priceless thing that I've ever been entrusted with. Or even, he's entrusted me with leading a congregation. That's a big deal. So it's 1 Timothy 6:20. Timothy, guard what God has entrusted to you. Avoid godless, foolish discussions with those who oppose you with their so-called knowledge. Some people have wandered from the faith by following such foolishness. May God's grace be with you all. And that's how he ends his letter. So just to kind of recap, see if there's anything that stuck out for you. What are some ideas, life habits we see in 1 Timothy that God has entrusted us with? Yeah, Chad, be generous, be rich in good deeds, help those in need, respect each other, pray for people, you said, be content, trust God, not riches. All those ideas are in there. Many say that Timothy is a letter that shows us what the church is supposed to be like. It's kind of a foundational, this is what the church should look like. It can vary in other little ways, but the foundation should be this, 1 Timothy 6. He discusses sound doctrine, false teaching, work, money, leadership, conscience, suffering, perseverance. All those ideas are in there. And chapter 6 brings all those ideas maybe together in contentment, generosity, endurance, guarding the faith. And then he winds it all up with grace. He starts with grace, he ends with grace. And so here's a question. What has challenged you the most as we've gone through this? Anybody have anything that really challenged you? Yeah, my thought was along the same lines, actually, the idea of fighting the good faith, not growing weary as time stretches on. Definitely had some days the past year when I felt apathetic about the world. And I keep coming back to the idea of something that somebody said that just has stuck with me for quite few years now, but finish well. Like whatever, everyone's getting older every day. And there comes a day when you realize that you're closer to the end than you are to the start. And regardless of whatever regrets you may have or how things didn't go the way you wanted or any kind of that stuff, or even, living in past successes rather than where you are right now, those kind of things, just to dwell on doing your best with whatever time is left. I keep on trying to challenge myself with that. Finish well. The race isn't over yet. So finish strong. You're on the final stretch. It might be another, who knows, but finish well. And then what encouraged you the most? And Judy shared that God uses everybody, whatever age you're at. Anybody else have something that encouraged you as we went through this that you'd like to share? I'm just going to assume that you were encouraged many, many times. Like almost every Sunday you came here, you were encouraged. I'm just going to assume that. But something you remember that stuck out that you want to share. So what does it look like to guard faith without becoming rigid? Yeah, to put it in a word, legalistic. Don't be legalistic. Yeah. Yeah, sound doctrine always has to be taught and followed. We need to stand on sound doctrine, but and you do have to be rigid on some things in a sense. Like there's some things that are non-negotiable, right? Like Jesus is the one and only way, but it's not an anger. And he says here, avoid getting into stupid arguments. And I think grace is the key word as we sum everything up. I think that's the key word, that we need grace as we stand on things that we say. These are truths that I can't negotiate with you on. These are the truths, but we're not enemies or anything. And grace and peace to you. Paul used that so often in his letters. Grace and peace to you. And I'll hopefully, we can talk about it in a friendly way, but we're not having a fight or anything. What helps faith stay alive and relational rather than theoretical? But for me, it's a relationship, not an institution. It's a personal relationship with God and with other believers. And the Bible lets us know what God is like and what pleases him and what he doesn't like and the things he rewards and the things he punishes. And that's all so we can have a relationship with him. It's so we know how to have a relationship with him. So we hold on to these things so we can love him more and know him better and know that he loves us and all that kind of stuff. So it's not an institution. We're not a club or institution, a set of rules. We're people that have a relationship with a living God. And he has a relationship with us, and because of that, we have a relationship with each other. That's what brings us all together, and then the love that flows from us to each other. Because however you are, and you often find, I think most Christians are easy to get along with, actually, because there is that desire in them to be more Christ-like or to follow what the Word says. And even if there might be minor things that we're like, well, I'm not sure what this says, or I think this means that, or whatever. But overall, we're like, we love God, we love Jesus, and he tells us to love each other. And so that's the thing that holds us all together. When you hear the phrase finishing well, what comes to mind? Yeah, that's a great challenge right there, just to hold on to that stuff. For me, lots of thoughts come that probably aren't suited to sharing in this environment. If you wanted to, be my shrink for a while, but maybe I can just say that I'm looking for a balance where I have a passion for God and for the things of the Lord, and also patience to work together in my life in the pursuit of God. And that's all I really can, without getting, not getting apathetic, not being frustrated, but maintaining a passion for God, but being patient with the process, because nothing ever happens as quickly or as the way you think or might expect it to. But I do wrestle with that, like being like, well, nothing's ever going to change. That kind of, no, like have a passion for God and a passion for his work, and that he's working and he's moving and he's doing great things all around us all the time. And sometimes it's less visible. Like they'd say, you got the tree and the roots are going down and you don't see that growth happening, but that's happening anyways. And then the fruit comes later on. But and one of my favorites, like, well, fruit grows in the valley. And you're like, oh my goodness, like how much fruit am I going to have? Like how deep is this valley? When's the fruit going to start growing? Because, yay, I can't hang on to that any longer. I'm ready to get out of the valley. Not that listen, again, I went too far. I'm not depressed. I'm not discouraged. I'm just saying when I think of finishing well, I'm like trying to encourage myself. Hang on. When you were a young man, and we probably all can relate to this, you thought the world could be changed. You thought so. And then as you got older, you realize it's just not that easy. So you don't want to have that passion, but have the wisdom, I guess, is what. Try to bring those together and not grow weary of doing good, which this letter brings out, and which you said, like, have your sincere faith. And so here's a question. Why do you think people often drift rather than decisively walking away from the faith? I think we're all familiar with the idea the devil's crafty. It's not very often that somebody just one day decides, I don't believe this. And they just 180 degrees. It's usually small little things. He tries to slip a question or a doubt into your mind, or if we're talking about getting too close to the fire kind of a thing, like, is this really so bad, or why is this bad in the first place? And you start questioning those things. And I think that's the experience of most people that eventually decide, I don't think I do believe this after all. It's a slow. There was a guy in Bible school that didn't sing, but his sermon, I just remember it was on Hebrews. And I don't remember really anything about it, but he always returned to this phrase, like they were slip sliding away. He kept on saying that. And it wasn't, and then Paul was trying to correct them, but it wasn't because they just all of a sudden decided, it's just is Jesus really who he said he was, and this and that, and they were just slip sliding away. And my homiletics professor said, wasn't that a good, he kept on saying, slip sliding away. Like he encouraged us to kind of do that kind of stuff that would stick in your mind. And here we are, and I'm older than I want to admit at this point, but what is it, 30, 40 years later? And I'm like, I still remember that, slip sliding away. So, and it made me look up the song Slip Sliding Away by Paul Simon. I never heard it before. And man, that made me melancholy. I was like, oh, that hits you in the feels, doesn't it, when you get older? Slip sliding away. It's like, oh boy, turn that off. I'm not slip sliding away. I'm going to, yeah. But how does ending with grace shape the way we approach obedience, perseverance? I got an idea. This is actually my main point, because I felt like this is, you see all that kind of stuff and you talk about sliding away and enduring and all these things. And but this is Paul's final word, and it's often how he starts his letters. So I like that in this case, when he's talking about here's all the foundational stuff for the church, he starts with grace, peace, and mercy. He adds in mercy, but often he says grace and peace. Like from Paul, grace and peace to you. And this time he says in this letter, grace, mercy, and peace to you. And then he ends it all again with grace. And so like here's the book ends. This grace, and then all this stuff, and then grace. And I think it's key, because when I think of grace, I think of God working in my life even though I don't deserve it. And even though I wander and I do this and I do that, and sometimes I'm stubborn and sometimes I'm rebellious, and sometimes I get ahead of him and sometimes I'm dragging my feet, it's grace. It's grace all the time. It's God still working in my life even though I don't deserve it. And it's grace to you and it's grace to me. And it's only by grace that we're continuing on. It's God giving us strength and power that we don't have. It doesn't come from within us. We don't deserve it. We don't deserve it. But he pours out grace on us all the time. So all of this stuff in this letter, like we try to do it. We know it's right. We agree with it mentally, but it's hard because we're imperfect and we disappoint ourselves and we disappoint other people. But the thing that keeps us all going is grace, because we can forgive ourselves because we understand God forgives us. And God says, get up and try again. When we fall down, we stumble, we fall. Other people fall down, they stumble and fall. And we have to come with that message and say, it's okay. It's not okay to sin, but we all sin. And you fell down, you don't have to stay there. You can get up, and we'll help you up, because God gave us grace, and God gives you grace, and God's working in our lives. And we forgive because we know how much God has forgiven us. And grace is so huge in a Christian's life. And it's not just the idea that I've been forgiven, but we know that God is working. Because I just love that definition, that grace is displaying his power in our lives, even though we don't deserve it. And so you can think of other people that are falling away, or they're angry at God, or whatever the situation is, they're stubborn, who knows? But God is working in them, because God works in you and God works in me, and we don't deserve it and they don't deserve it, and God's working. We do all this stuff and we look back and we say, well, I wasn't my best that day, right? Like we all do stuff. And we look back and we say, I wish I hadn't acted like that. I wasn't at my best that day, or I wasn't at my best that week, or maybe I wasn't at my best that entire month. But we were under pressure and we didn't react to people around us with grace. And we've been around people who are rude and hurtful towards us. And sometimes we try to make that right and the other party won't listen. And I'm not thinking of anybody specifically when I'm saying this. I'm thinking of myself, actually, because I'm in a situation where I in my work situation, I didn't act properly for a while, and I own that, okay? And I apologized, and I was like, okay, let's go forward from here. But the other party doesn't want to go forward from here. And so we need God's grace. We need God's power in our lives in that situation. Like if you snub me or you make my job harder or whatever, grace to you, because I need grace to me. Because I've hung on to things in my life and I understand it just hurts me. I know that by now. So I pray real hard when I'm obsessing about something that God would help me to let it go. And I've found it's actually a few words that work, do the trick. I forgive them. And just saying that feels like a weight's been lifted. And it might be a few hours and I'm thinking about it again. So I have to say I forgive them again. And I understand why Jesus said you have to forgive 7 times 70. Like, is it okay to forgive 7 times? No, 7 times 70. Because every time I think of it again, I have to say I forgive them again. And God give me grace. And the more I say it, the more it starts to get into my spirit until it's like I really do forgive them. Like at first it might just be a word, right? Like I forgive them. But then, oh, that really bugs me, I forgive them. Oh, that really bugs me, I forgive them. It really bugs me, I forgive them. And eventually it starts to really take root in my spirit. And I do forgive them because that's God's grace working in my life. It just can't come. It isn't in here. I'm not that kind of person. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just not that good. I hold on to things. My memory is too good. It's a curse in a way. I remember a lot of things. And unfortunately, I seem to remember those things that hurt or those things that were said or whatever. And God has to give me grace because it doesn't come from in here. It's not in this person. It's only the grace of God that I'm able to move past that and say, I forgive. And then I can look at myself through the same lenses of God and recognize, you're not all that either, buddy. Lots of people have had to have grace towards you. Grace of God. It's all about the grace of God and paying it forward. So I like that Paul's always grace and peace to you. Grace and peace to you. I pray that all the time. When I pray, that's always in my prayers. Like I pray for everybody, grace and peace. Grace and peace to the congregation, to my friends, to my family. Grace and peace to them. What are some practices? So kind of closing up here. What are some practices that help you stay grounded when doubts or distractions arise? I think prayer for me is the biggest thing. Reading the Bible is important, but actually just talking with God when you have doubts or you're upset about stuff. Or I always feel refreshed and I feel less confused and I feel more purposeful after talking to Jesus. Like, come on, let's have a little talk with Jesus and tell him all about our troubles. It's a good song. He'll hear our faintest cry, I'll answer by and by. Just a little talk with Jesus makes it right. And that's definitely true for me. Prayer is probably the biggest thing. So I'll leave you with this thought, a couple of scriptures. I didn't copy them down there. The same God who called us is faithful to carry us through. 1 Thessalonians 5, now may the God of peace make you holy in every way, and may your whole spirit and soul and body be kept blameless until our Lord Jesus Christ comes again. God will make this happen, for he who calls you is faithful. And Philippians 1:6, and I am certain that God, who began a good work within you, will continue his work until it's finally finished on the day when Christ Jesus returns. Grace and peace for you. Finishing well isn't about perfection. It's about guarding the faith with humility, with trust, and with the grace of God.